Love that song. Those of you who are just joining, we were just enjoying the Who's Going Mobile. Those of you that know me know that I'm kind of a music nut. And this song has been in my head during preparation, so I just had to share it with you. You know, we're going to be going mobile today as we cruise around a couple of different software solutions discussing mobile. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our national webinar. Thanks for joining. I'm Doc Balgi, Technical Solutions Specialist for ACDI, and I'm here to help you sort out the confusion and be able to discuss your customers' options. You know, this is the most talked about segment of printing and still kind of cloudy on the technical side due to constant changes in mobile architecture, OS, and really all things associated with printing from mobile devices. Now, we know all the manufacturers have mobile apps, and they do work if you're in a single server environment with everyone on the same subnet. Of course, if it's a multi-vendor fleet, then you need an app from every manufacturer too. So today, we'll show you how to get around those limitations with an enterprise mobile rollout, giving all users the capability to print any document, anytime, anywhere. Hey, also another chance to win a very cool ACDI t-shirt or polo at the end of the presentation, so pay close attention. Let's get started. We have a couple of solutions to discuss, and we're going to get to PrinterOn in just a bit. But first up is PaperCut's Mobility Print that debuted in March. In a small environment, you can have Mobility Print up and running in just a few clicks, literally 5 minutes. Printers show up automatically with a very easy-to-use interface to turn them on or off. And you can also determine authentication needs with a slider switch, and we'll go more into detail on that in just a bit. You know, for regular printing, we need to have our devices joined to the domain or run the PaperCut client for authentication like we do it in many Mac installations. With Mobility Print, you don't need to join the domain to print. As long as they have a PaperCut login or use a guest access, end users can easily submit their job all on their own. That's true BYOD, or bring your own device. Authentication is handled by various means depending on the client OS that is sending the job. And unless you're using PaperCut's shared accounts, then you don't have to use the PaperCut client installed on the end user's device either. The current installer for Mobility Print is a Windows-only installer. A Mac version's in the works, really due to be released shortly, literally any day. Now, the requirements are very similar to PaperCut itself, but keep in mind that Mobility Print is a subset of PaperCut. In other words, PaperCut needs to be running as well. This is not a standalone solution. Now, we have many installations of this on a Windows 10 computer. Works really well with real estate, shared office customers, that type of thing. But do please keep in mind that on a Windows Workstation OS, we are still subject to the 10 simultaneous connection limit from Microsoft. Another nice feature of Mobility Print is that as long as you have the server connected to the internet, Mobility Print will update itself. In most cases, you don't need to update PaperCut to have the latest features of mobility. Here's the minimum specifications on the client side. You need to have at least Windows 7 or above. Mac OS has got to be at least Yosemite. iOS of 9.2 or above. Android, we start at KitKat. And Chrome OS extension is 43 or greater. I was just checking mine. The current build looks like it's around 60.x or so. In terms of ports, they're a little bit different with Mobility Print. It's not our usual 9191, 9192, or 9193. With Mobility, we are using 9163 for regular transmission, and for HTTPS, the port is 9164. DNS, MDNS, they're using their well-known ports of 53 and 5353 respectively. key requirements here is that the printer has a print driver for the server host operating system. Well, since we're only Windows right now, that means a Windows print driver. And I've even found through testing that I can get a Mac to print on a device that does not have a Mac driver, like a lower-end inkjet that might only use XPS drivers. Installing PaperCut Mobility Print is easy. However, like all good cooking, a little bit of preparation helps. Select a host for Mobility Print. That's usually an existing print server. Set up a print server if one doesn't already exist. And if you already have an existing Windows print server, bonus. Mobility Print needs to be installed on a system that is permanently connected to your network. So this can be an existing Windows print server, an existing server running other software that can host a Windows app, a new system, even a desktop system. Of course, the limitations apply, and you want to make sure that's always on, or possibly a virtual machine running Windows. Now, this device here does need to have its own IP address. You can't put this behind NAT, Network Address Translation. Got to have its own. One warning, do not install Mobility Print on a DNS server. Now, to set up print server and to integrate with PaperCut, you just ensure that the host system is connected to the same TCP network that will be used by all of your end users. Set up your printers on the Windows system using the manufacturer's provided print drivers. Here's a tip for you, and this even really includes PaperCut as well. Make sure your printers have logical names. Don't use that long default name that you get from the print driver. It's boring, and it's also harder to change later. Users get used to names. Use some intelligent names here. That'll make your life a lot easier. Now, perform a test print on each printer. Make sure it works. Don't forget to put paper in there as well. I've done that. Now, install PaperCut Secondary Server, the print provider, and check that print jobs are being tracked by PaperCut. Mentioned earlier, and so intuitive, just like all good install packages, just download, run, click next a couple of times, done. See, that was really easy. And the installer is built right into PaperCut. There's no searching around for the files. You don't have to go to another site or all that kind of stuff. Now, during installation, you're going to be prompted to optionally install Ghost Trap. This is strongly recommended. It will help you support the widest range of Windows versions. Ghost Trap is an open source software used to convert PostScript to PDF in a secure sandbox. And you know what? That's the secret behind Mobility Print. Jobs get transformed into PDF on the client, and that's why Mobility can output so easily. Now, after you get done installing, this is pretty much what you should see. Your indicators will be at 0, but you're going to have like a welcome to the Mobility Print admin interface. It's going to show the server status, what's going on now, like how long the server's been up and time of the last print job. So take some time to check it out. Above each of the client OS icons, a number is displayed. This is a count of the number of print jobs sent from that type of client. You'll see these numbers increment when you do some testing, and that's coming up in the next phase. So we're going to be mobile a little bit here, switch to printer discovery. It's important that you learn how Mobility Print publishes printers. They do call it print discovery. The discovery options will determine how devices can find the printers. For iOS devices, this is done with MDNS or DNS. For most small organizations, the default MDNS should just work. You could jump right to the testing phase and give it a go. Larger organizations with more complex networks or sysadmins with a technical inclination may want to use DNS. And if you'd like further details on how it works, there is complete documentation online if you want the full story. You don't need to log in or have an account or anything. It's right there on www.papercut.com/KB. KB is for knowledge base. Check it out. Just search for mobility, and you'll find out how it works. Now, DNS requires a little bit more work to do, and sysadmins that we've worked with on setup are really stating it's working very well and not that difficult, at least for them. Essentially, pointer records need to be created, and you have the ability to publish specific printers on specific subnets. We'll have more on that in just a minute. This is the MDNS setup. Authentication per job is on. When you do that, authentication is enforced for every single print job. You use this setting for shared devices, maybe something in a library or something along that line. Authentication per job off. This will allow authentication details to be reused. If the device remembers the authentication details, authentication is required only once for each printer, and it's done when the printer is first used by any user on a particular device. So this means that for shared devices, once a printer is authenticated, any subsequent users of that device may not need to authenticate when they print. Published printers also. Simple toggle. You want to see it or not? Got to do a quick note here. The per job authentication is not supported on Windows devices. Windows devices do request authentication only once upon installation. Now, with DNS, Mobility Print allows you to specify a list of printers that are available for each subnet in your organization. For example, in a college, you might have all the student devices on a different subnet to the staff devices, and you want each of these groups to have access to a different set of printers. In a commercial organization, you might have multiple office locations or different floors with a subnet for each. Using Mobility Print, you can publish the printers at a particular location only to the clients at that location, on that same subnet. Now, if you had set up Mobility Print with a site server using PaperCut 17.0, and you've upgraded to PaperCut 17.1 or later, you need to undo the changes described here, and that's simply removing those lines and saving the file. Now, you may need to launch Notepad as an administrator in order to do this. Upgrading will allow Mobility Print to work with a site server when the connection with the application server is down. That came out in 17.1. So this ensures PaperCut Mobility Print can work in an offline mode. For whatever reason, if you're still running the older version of PaperCut, and Mobility came out in 17.0, then you need to make the following changes here to the config files for Mobility Print to work. But please note, with this change, Mobility Print will not work if the connection between the application server and the site server is down. As I mentioned, to fix this issue, you need to upgrade PaperCut application server and site server to 17.1 or higher. Like I said, Mobility Print updates itself, but this is one of those cases where PaperCut needs to be upgraded as well to take advantage of this capability. I'm really not sure why you would stay on just V17. I would just go ahead and upgrade. And by the way, 17.3 came out just a couple of days ago. So while you don't have to upgrade, again, I just don't know why you wouldn't, since the upgrades have all the latest and greatest features in them. Now, in some situations, the Mobility Print internal IP assigned by DHCP might not be reachable by the requesting devices. For example, this could happen if the Mobility Print server is behind a firewall. Mobility Print allows you to configure a specific IP address that can be used so that devices can reach the Mobility Print server. For each client OS you want to support, in the Mobility Print admin interface, click the Setup Guide link. Follow the client setup instructions. And on each type of device, send a test print job. Verify that that document printed correctly, and then check the job counter in that interface. It should have moved from 0 to 1, or as you keep going, it'll increment up, and you'll repeat that for each printer. You want to make sure these are all working, of course, before you roll it out. It's very important for you to also turn off the printer's own sharing mechanism. Many of these are on by default. For example, some printers have their own Mopria, MDNS, AirPrint, or Bonjour Discovery. If you don't do this, printers might appear in the end user's printer list multiple times, causing confusion, and those printers won't be tracked or secured either. Only the ones published by Mobility Print can do that. Now, post the URL on the Mobility Print poster, share the link via email, or add onto your intranet homepage for easy access from the end user, and you're done. Going mobile again, shifting gears to take a look at PrinterOn to see how it differs from PaperCut. Here's a comparison chart for the different editions of PrinterOn. The hosted version has just about everything you need, and for those customers that want to run it in-house, the Express and Enterprise options are available. Here's the different components for PrinterOn with their respective acronyms. The Configuration Manager provides a single centralized management console for all software components, servers, and options. Then you have the PrinterOn Central Print Services, CPS. This includes the CPS web printing pages, and you'll host that on your own network to allow uploading of documents to the service and the CPS admin console. You have the PrinterOn Print Anywhere Server, or PAS, that provides document processing and rendering. The PrinterOn Print Delivery Station, or PDS, collects print jobs and provides privacy release capability. And finally, the PrinterOn Print Delivery Gateway, the PDG. This provides support for printing from a variety of devices and systems, including iOS and Google Cloud Print compatible apps, or even traditional print queues. So here's a nice graphic of what I was just talking about. This is the architecture for PrinterOn, where you can see how all of those pieces fit together. Now there's also the Print Delivery Hub that's shown right in the middle, the PDH component. That is only available in PrinterOn Enterprise, not available on Express. Its main function really is to process jobs from the printware driver. So if your customer needs Windows printing, then you will want to make sure to use the Enterprise version. Now this diagram illustrates a distributed PrinterOn Express deployment. On PrinterOn Express, all the components must be installed on a single server, and multiple networks and the PDH component are not supported. And with all that going on, really interesting to note that the system requirements are not too bad, pretty much like any other print server. Recommended software for the current server editions 2012 and 2016 on the server side. You want to have Microsoft Office anywhere from 2010 to 2016 installed, OpenOffice or LibreOffice 5.0 or later in 32-bit mode. There's no need for IIS to be running since we use Tomcat on the Windows server, and it's also recommended to remove any instances of SQL as well. The main port that's used is the HTTPS port 443 for inbound and outbound communication. That's a well-known port, of course. Ports 80 and 631 are recommended, but they're not required. 80 is for regular web traffic, and 631 we use for cups. Now, we cover a lot of PaperCut, naturally, since we're powered by PaperCut, but I wanted to spend a moment on the installation of PrinterOn. You just want to make sure you've got your license file ready, and you can see it's very straightforward. Log in correctly. Ensure updates on the server have been done. Internet Explorer is updated. Office installed. IIS and SQL are removed or disabled. And finally, make sure port 443 is open or not in use by any other application. The installation, of course, on these directions do pertain to the Enterprise version, not for hosted. The installer for PrinterOn is very intuitive. You just follow the steps, enter your admin account info, reboot, and you're ready for configuration. When the system comes back up, it's time to set up the printers. As you can see, there are several methods for attaching virtually any type of printer to the system for output. Now, PrinterOn also features a web portal that enables you to upload a document into the system for rendering with easy-to-follow instructions for the end user. And finally, Here's the PrinterOn mobile app. This is available for iOS 7 or higher and Android 4.0 or higher, and are in their respective stores. Download it yourself. You actually do that now. You might even find a search for printers and see a few locations near you that are already set up with PrinterOn. Might want to pay attention to that. It may have been done by a competitor, so take a look at that. Download the app. The one question you might still have is, which product should I use? And you know, it really boils down to what the customer needs. If you just need a mobile print solution, PrinterOn is a great way to go. And if you need Find Me with off-the-glass tracking as well, then PaperCut will fit the bill. You can always reach out to us here at ACDI for guidance and support for both PrinterOn and PaperCut. Just reach out to your RSS, your RSM, or channel manager for more information.